Have you ever really listened to the tackles in football movies? It's like the players are made of the same cheap material as water bottles. When the Game Stands Tall is based on the true story of a high school football team who won more games in a row than any other team in history, and the difficult season that tested them both as players and as men. It stars Jim Caviezel as the coach that is trying to not only teach the ins and outs of a wishbone defense, but the ins and outs of a well-lived life. Of course, when you have Jesus himself calling the plays, it's easy to see why they racked up so many wins. Seriously though, this is obviously a movie that puts a lot of attention on its message, which oftentimes means a little less attention on its quality. So how's the balance here? Well, it's kind of hit and miss. In fact, I'm rarely this conflicted on a movie. Maybe it's just the growing pains of the faith-based film genre, but I found myself applauding the movie's skill one second and then rolling my eyes as it fell back into cliché and cloy the next. It's as if these filmmakers are trying to find the balance themselves, like a toddler learning to walk, taking a few solid steps before seat planting and then trying to get back up and walk again. I mean, there are some things I really liked about the movie. First, the football scenes are choreographed and executed very well. I never found myself questioning the reality of those contests, aside from the fact that every time someone got tackled, it sounded like every bone in their body snapped. But other than that, it felt like real high school football. Of course, much of that has to do with some pretty decent acting by these kids who handled some pretty intense subject matter fairly well. It's also nice to see Michael Chiklis and Laura Dern putting in some wonderful work here alongside Coach Caviezel, whose understated performance needed that little spicing up on the sides. But the best thing for me about this movie is that it didn't suffer from the bow tie syndrome that many in this genre do. When you tie up every problem with a pretty little bow, you short-circuit the reality of life. And here we're allowed to hear hard questions and maybe not even get all the answers. The result is felt in what I consider to be a beautiful finale, where the truth of the sentiment feels legitimate and not just another trite conclusion. If only the rest of the movie had been so consistent. First, and probably worst, this movie is just structured poorly. Adapting a true story can be tricky, and there's a reason movie makers change things and combine multiple characters and events together to tell a better story. There's so much going on here that we aren't often sure what the primary message, story conflict, and ultimately resolution should be. It results in a movie that is too long, feels too loose, and has 2 or 3 false endings. Plus, there's still those occasional Christian cliché moments undercut by over-the-top maudlin music as if to say, pay attention, theatergoers, here's where the important stuff is. Look, put the story work in first, and if the truth of the message is there, it will shine through on its own. Truth has a way of doing that. Overall, When the Game Stands Tall is likely another message movie that will mostly appeal to the crews in the pews more than the fans in the stands. Even though the game plan lacked some focus in its execution, I still felt like the acting and willingness to ask some hard questions allows it to dive across the line with a hard-fought B-. Thanks for checking out this Your Movie Friend review. You can stay tuned for this review's best ever challenge here in a bit. First, I want to throw some stuff up over here you can click on if you'd like to subscribe, which I'd very much appreciate. You can do that by clicking the big gray subscribe button. Want to see more? Not a problem. Reviews of If I Stay and the new Sin City flick are yours for the clicking as well. You can also click the logo right up here to go to the all-new YourMovieFriend.com, where you can find a searchable database of reviews as well as the written text of these videos. And finally, this review's best ever challenge, where you name the best movie ever in a particular category and also try to identify my choice. What is the best football movie ever? Mine stars a hobbit. Not literally, of course, because they're fictional, you see. Drop your own answer and a guess at mine in the comments, and the first person to guess mine does get a point. Thanks, and please subscribe.